So I see a lot of stuff about AI in education and how it's going to completely ruin education because students are going to be cheating and using it to write their essays. And this is maybe true. I actually bring a sort of different idea to the table. And I think, because I think that AI is going to completely revolutionize education and save it. It's been pretty well documented that over the last couple of decades that our educational, especially the last decade, that educational attainment has been decreasing. Um, and we don't really know the reason for this, but I think AI will be able to change this. And the reason is because of something called Bloom's two sigma problem, which was made by a scientific study done by psychologist Benjamin Bloom back in the 1980s, which essentially showed that students who received a one-on-one tutoring in pair with mastery learning, which is where you learn a subject to mastery before moving on to the next subject. So one-on-one tutoring plus mastery learning resulted in these students performing two standard deviations above the rest of the students in the cohort, which means they perform better than 98% of the other students. And that sounds, I mean, incredible. Why don't we all do this? Well, obvious. The answer is obvious because we didn't have the economic capabilities to do this. So it's kind of just been ignored, and only really wealthy people had access to this sort of method of learning and method of teaching until now. And I think with the proliferation of all these large language models that have more intelligence than essentially any human on Earth right now, uh, they can be used as a sort of infinitely intelligent, infinitely patient one-on-one tutor to any student. And the nice part about this is it can learn and teach at this, it can teach at the same rate that the student is learning. So students who have a harder time with math maybe will receive a better one-on-one instruction from the AI models. And the nice part about those AI, another nice part about those AI models is that they can grasp a level of the level of students' understanding, and make it make sense in a way that works for them, that clicks in their brain, that makes them understand, and helps them to move on to the next subject. So I think that's going to completely change how we do education. The thing is, everyone is talking about how awful it's going to be for education. You can see all the guardrails, uh, all the prevention of AI in the classroom already going up. It's like sticking in people's minds. Um, but I think when you have the proper guardrails that prevent students from teaching, so that'll mean that we need to make better systems. Companies will have to form around these AI tutoring models that sort of digitally track and um, uh, show the students' progress. I think when you have the combination of the companies and the combination of the schools, that's whenever you start to hit success. And unfortunately, I don't think this is going to happen for a long time in the public schools because the public sector is very slow to make adjustments to things. And it's very conservative. Um, Whereas on the other side, you'll have private schools and charter schools that will probably slowly pop up and begin adopting these things, and you'll see massive improvements in those students. So it's not going to be fair for a while. Um, but whenever those massive improvements, they'll become so undeniable that other schools will have to eventually adopt them. And another reason I'm super excited about the AI potential, maybe a more pie in the sky reason, is I really like these essays called by Eric Hoel, which are, um, I think they're titled "Why We Stopped Making Einsteins," and essentially it's about how the 20th century and the 19th century had, and earlier as well, had many geniuses, including Einstein among those, the most famous, of course. And all these geniuses seem to have one thing in common: that they were taught they were aristocratically tutored. So meaning they were raised in a very wealthy family, which had access to the world's experts in any subject they wanted. The parents wanted them to learn, and those students sort of developed a curiosity, a natural curiosity, and an expertise in the world that was unattainable by other students. And this method of teaching slowly gave way to the widespread public education, which brought up the masses, but simultaneously made it more difficult for this style of teaching to be implemented by wealthy individuals, as they just sent them off to public schools, or private schools became the new default. And while rich people still use tutors, the tutor, the sort of expert matter tutor, began to be replaced by the credentialed matter tutor, meaning the value of learning, the value of education, and curiosity was slowly replaced with a more valuing on getting into a higher institution such as an Ivy League school, which really completely degrades learning and education. But I think AI will begin to change that. You'll see a a slow proliferation of a return to aristocratic tutoring and a widespread use of this aristocratic tutoring as AI models begin to model it. You can have Aristotle teach you philosophy. You guys have Socrates and Aristotle and Plato and everyone teach you philosophy. You can be taught calculus by Newton, calculus by theory of relativity from Einstein, all through these AI models. And so I think that is why AI will completely change education. And as long as we don't sort of give into the complaints of the people who don't want it to be used for cheating, and as long as we put up the proper guardrails to prevent cheating, then I think we will see a widespread adoption of AI in the classroom, which will completely change education for the better.